Your friends have been possessed by a demonic force that you cannot comprehend. Their only goal is to feast on your flesh. No one is around to help you, and you cannot leave the cabin because the woods surrounding you are even more evil than the creatures you are trapped inside with. If you can survive until the sunrise, you just may have a chance to reverse the curse. It's time to break down the triumphs, failures, and glory battles to find out how to beat the relentless demons in The Evil Dead. Something unnatural is stirring in the woods. It swirls around, gliding over fallen trees, ponds, and dead leaves. It makes its way to the road, stalking this passing car. This group of college kids is going to be hunted down by life-sucking demons. Traveling to their rented holiday cabin in the middle of the Tennessee woods, this young man, Ash, directs his buddy, Scott, on which way to go. Suddenly, the steering wheel turns rogue, ripping itself from Scott's grip and nearly drives them straight onto an oncoming truck. Scott wrangles the wheel back, just narrowly avoiding a gruesome death. His girlfriend, Shelley, screams from the front seat. He blames the near accident on Ash's faulty steering wheel as they pass by these two hitchhikers. His sister, Cheryl, questions where they're actually going. He mentions that it's a small, cheap cabin on the mountainside. He got a really great rental deal on it from the owner. They pass over this rickety bridge that Scott assures everyone is completely safe. As they cross, a piece of the bridge falls and their wheel plummets through, but Scott continues driving without a care in the world. They make it across, but these are just a few signs that this holiday cabin is not what they bargained for. The group finally arrives at their destination, and everyone stands back and lets Scott here walk in first. He finds a set of keys above a door frame and slowly takes a look inside the abandoned cabin. Scott finds that the place has been pretty well kept and definitely not hiding any supernatural creatures. Inside this workshop, he finds a number of animal skeletons and hunting tools scattered around the place, but shrugs them off. That night, Cheryl draws up a sketch of this old clock when suddenly she notices something off. The pendulum stops mid-swing as a gust of wind comes through the open window, carrying voices from the outside, eerily muttering, "Join us." She looks towards her sketchbook and her hand is taken control of, furiously drawing this picture of a trapdoor. Her browns turn black and she loses control of herself. Then, it all suddenly stops. She lowers her book and she's been sketching this trapdoor with a chain around it to prevent something or someone from trying to get out. The group eat dinner, sharing a toast to their exciting holiday. That's when they hear a loud noise, the trapdoor flying open. Ash questions what the hell is going on, and the group takes guesses on what the disturbance could be. Cheryl, the most frightened, suggests it's only an animal and they should just leave it alone, but no one else agrees. Scott decides to go down by himself with a flashlight as his only protection. After a few moments, Ash calls out to his buddy, but hears nothing back. Ash gets Lisa, his girlfriend, to bring him a lantern before slowly going down the staircase. He calls out for Scott, noticing water dripping down from the ceiling. That's when Ash hears a sound coming from behind this door. Walking closer, he slowly opens it and checks inside, being startled by Scott, who jumps out, revealing that it was all a prank. He brings Ash over to this hidden compartment where he's found a working rifle and scares him again by rubbing the tip near his neck. Ash finds this creepy book, opening it to find a collection of strange drawings and letters inside. Scott picks up a long knife with a skull hilt, joking that it looks like Ash's old girlfriend. They laugh away, not realizing that these objects are a sign of something far more sinister than an ex-girlfriend. Okay, this was not in the Airbnb ad. The friends have just arrived at the cabin in the woods, ready for a weekend of relaxation and maybe a little bit of sex. Who can say? But the cabin has a few more things than advertised. In the basement, there are some foreign objects and artifacts that do not quite indicate that all is well. What's going on in this basement and the rest of the cabin for that matter? I'm not sure I want to know. Nothing bad has really happened yet, and it's best to try and keep it that way. The worst thing to do in this scenario is to take out all the death objects and play with them. But something tells me that that's what these folks are gonna do. I mean, they found the demon dungeon in like under an hour, so I don't think clear thinking is anyone's forte. Have there been warnings all along that have gone ignored? Well, before the gang even arrived at the cabin, things were not all right. Scott rented this cabin. From whom? No idea. He says he got a good, cheap deal. Was the offer your life in exchange for a night in a busted shack? Not sure how good that is, Scott. Remember kids, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Even though the internet does not exist yet, there are still ways Scott could have verified the property. Start at the source and ask whoever you're renting from for references. Call those people if they aren't dead. Go to the library and look at property records, maps, and newspaper clippings for any information available about the land. But Scott didn't do this, and now everyone is about to find themselves in mortal danger. Even if the group still got into the car and headed towards this extremely sketchy deal, shouldn't the run down state of things be another red flag? The car almost crashed through a bridge. This is not necessarily a demonically charged happening, nor does the group have any reason to expect it to be. However, why does no one consider that a rickety bridge that is their only way across this river and that is beginning to break is a bad sign? What are they supposed to do in the morning when the bridge doesn't work and they can't get back across? Now, let's stop blaming everything on Scott for a moment and turn our attention to Cheryl. Has she done anything blatantly wrong? No, but she does lose control of her own hand for a moment and violently scribbles the shape of the trap door. It freaks her out, but she doesn't tell anyone. That seems like the sort of thing you would want to share with your friends. Maybe she feels stupid, and that the link between her drawing and the cabin's trap door is flimsy. Could she have subconsciously noticed it when she sat down to draw? Her drawing does not really prove that anything mysterious is going on, but if it were me, I might throw in a, "Hey guys, I sort of disassociated for a minute and drew the creepy trap door," which is now banging around and freaking us out. Once the trap door is discovered, why does anyone allow Scott to go down and investigate? But no, Scott goes down and Ash follows. They find this nifty room full of ritualistic totems and think, hey, this seems like a fun thing to play with. In fact, this is the perfect opportunity to have the "are we leaving" conversation. The cabin is the bridge is breaking, you almost crashed into a truck on the way, Cheryl just had an out-of-body experience, and now you found a stash of potential murder weapons. Time to pack up the car and call the vacation quits. There's probably a nice little motel in a nearby town. Why not go there? Later, they sit around the fireplace making silly jokes to each other while Ash reveals he found a tape player downstairs. Playing it to the rest of the group, they hear this voice of a researcher who exposed the ruins of Kandar with his colleagues, eventually moving into this same cabin with his wife. That's when he explains that he found a life-changing discovery. Inside the ruins was a book called the Naturum de Monto, translated to Book of the Dead. It's the very book Ash is holding. The cover is said to be sculpted with human flesh and text inside penned with human blood. The contents revolve around demons who roamed the forest around the cabin that they're staying in. The researcher continues by mentioning that these demons stay dormant but can be revived through reciting passages in the book. Hearing this, Cheryl refuses to hear any more and shuts the recording off. Scott teases her for being scared of a simple voice recording, but they don't realize that she's the only sane person in the group. Scott resumes the cursed tape, which chants a strange, foreign incantation. As this is read, the ground outside the cabin begins to shake, a bright light piercing out of the dark ground. Something wakes up. Cheryl demands to stop the recording, freaking out as the window next to them shatters. Ash scolds his buddy for continuing to terrify the girl, while Scott refuses to own up to his mistake. Later, Ash suggests to Linda that they stay up and listen to the stormy weather. Linda walks off to check on Cheryl first, and he brings out a box with an expensive necklace inside. She comes back to find her boyfriend pretending to be asleep, the box resting on his leg. She reaches for it slowly, trying not to wake him, then catches him pretending. Ash offers to place it around her neck and says that he didn't have a chance to give it to her before. She takes a look at herself in the mirror, gushing over the jewelry and saying that she'll keep it forever. Linda and Ash kneel by the fire, Shelley and Scott undress for some adult fun, and Cheryl readies herself for bed. The demon mutters the phrase, "Join us," again, catching her attention. Cheryl walks outside and calls out to ward off any potential intruder as she walks deeper into the forest. Suddenly, she hears a loud crackling sound from inside the fog. The demons begin closing in, knocking down trees as they come. Then her entire body is wrapped up in vicious thorns, cutting her clothes off and tearing the girl's skin. Cheryl struggles to break free as she fears for her life. The forest is trying to get inside her body. Cheryl breaks free of the terrifying thorns and runs back to the cabin with her clothes half torn off, tripping before she finally reaches home. Cheryl bangs on the door, begging for someone to open the door. She remembers that the keys are above their door frame and rushes to find the right key to open it. At the last moment, Ash hears the noise and opens up the door to find Cheryl here in a rotten state. The group question who she might have been attacked by, but Cheryl insists that it was the trees that caused this. Linda suggests that she take her into the back room to relax. She insists that Ash drive back to town, refusing no as an answer. He decides to help her and walks her outside to get in their car as the group stares. Ash tries to start up the vehicle, but the engine won't crank. Cheryl tells him that this was always going to happen. The forest won't let them leave. That's when the car starts and the group breathes a sigh of relief, deciding to head back inside. Ash drives her closer towards town before realizing that something is wrong up ahead. He gets out and walks into the fog as Cheryl nervously follows him. A tree branch falls in front of her, frightening the girl. She continues through the fog to see that the bridge collapsed and sprints back to the car as Ash grabs a hold of her. They reluctantly head back to the cabin. Ash privately listens to more of the recording, which explains that the researcher's wife was possessed by a Kandarian demon, and the only solution to save her was bodily dismemberment. Meanwhile, Linda and Shelley play a guessing game with blackjack cards. Shelley lies to Linda that she's guessing the correct hidden card. That's when Cheryl begins furiously naming off different cards. Each guess is eerily correct. She spins around to reveal that she's transformed into a horrifying demon. These college kids have uncovered a disturbing secret. A possessed Cheryl screeches that they've awakened a deadly threat and will die just as everyone else has before. She falls back onto the floor, unconscious, as they take a look at her wounded face. Suddenly, Cheryl springs back up and viciously stabs Linda's ankle with a pencil, tearing up the entire inside of her foot. Linda is thrown against the wall. The demon grabs a hold of Ash's face and tosses him against a wooden cupboard. She inches closer to the man as everyone is helpless to stop her. That's when Scott attacks her with an axe, bludgeoning her repeatedly in the head, until she falls down into the basement and he chains the door shut. Okay, holy Cheryl's a demon, and she really knows how to handle a pencil. We can all agree that Scott should take the biggest helping of the blame for what's going on. He spent way too long digging around the basement, brought up the tape player, and kept playing it when the others were objecting. He played the incantation that got them into this mess and has permanently ruined Cheryl's life. To really address the problem at hand though, how do we deal with Demon Cheryl? We could try to just leave. The bridge is out, but that doesn't mean that there are no other means of escape. Get everyone into the car, even Scott, drive it down to where the bridge collapsed, and swim across to safety. The real hiccups in this plan are that once we cross the river, we're probably still miles away from the closest help. More than that, Linda can't swim with her messed up ankle. That doesn't mean a single person could not try to go and get help. Sacrifice Scott for his mistakes and make him come to the rescue. While Scott does that, Ash needs to defend himself and the others. Grab the tape player. It caused the destruction before, but the worst of that has already begun, hopefully. So play the tape and see what the researcher said is necessary to defeat the demons. After all, this happened to his own wife and he lived to tell the tale, so he seems to have successfully defeated the threat. Continue to play the tape and heed whatever advice it gives you. The advice it's already given you, though, is to cut the bodies up of those possessed by the demons. Cheryl is everyone's friend, but the body in the basement no longer belongs to Cheryl. So now is the time to quite literally cut her off. Scott found some old tree saws in the room with the animal carcass. There are knives in the kitchen and even a blender, which would require dangerous hand-to-hand combat but could still prove harmful to the demon. In the basement where the tape player was found and what began all this bloody mess, there was a rifle. That would be useful right about now. When Scott bashed Cheryl in the head, he did so with the butt of an axe. That is the closest weapon to everyone's disposal, so use it. If everyone arms themselves with any sharp object they can find, they have a chance at overcoming Demon Cheryl. Her vibe is ruining the vacation. Linda is out for the count because of her ankle injury, but if Ash, Scott, and Shelley all work together to dismember their friend in the basement, they can surely survive until sunrise and then find a way to get the hell out of these woods. Later, Ash checks up on his girlfriend to make sure that she's sleeping safely. Scott and Shelley watch as a demonic Cheryl pushes through the trapdoor trying to escape. Scott suggests that they leave, but Ash decides that they'll have to wait until morning to get out. Shelley freaks out seeing the state that her friend is in with her face completely disfigured from before. Scott attempts to calm her down, but there's still something lingering outside that's about to attack. He brings Shelley over to her room in order for her to relax, but she's quickly assaulted by the mysterious demon who breaks through the window. Hearing this, the boys head into her room and find out that Shelley has disappeared. Scott takes a quick look outside, but with no luck. Hearing a noise from the wardrobe, he quickly opens it, but there's still no sign of Shelley. He walks into the bathroom and checks the tub, turning around to be grabbed and slashed by a demonic Shelley. Ash watches as they wrestle out of the restroom. Scott manages to throw her onto the fireplace. Her body begins to burn and she screams, so Scott quickly pulls her out. Shelley thanks him for saving her life and she latches onto the man's neck. Ash rushes over to pull the demon off before being pushed over again. That's when the demon grabs the skull sword and tries to slash Scott's face off. He manages to pull his hunting knife out from its sheath on his back and slashes the demon's wrist. The demon bites into its wound and gnaws off its own hand as Scott notices that she's dropped the knife. Grabbing it, he stabs Demon Shelley in the back. Smoke pours out from the skull-shaped handle and the demon tries to pull the blade from its back, finally doing so before collapsing. The boys watch, but the demon does not move. Scott walks over and the demon grabs his leg, pulling itself back up with his body. Realizing that the demon isn't finished with them yet, he demands that a terrified Ash hit the demon. He refuses, so Scott takes away his axe and finishes her off himself. He hacks the body into bits, and it begs for mercy. It's a brutal scene, and Scott here has just been forced to kill his own girlfriend. Ash cannot make a move, but questions what to do now. Scott steps up and decides to bury the girl outside while a new threat begins to approach their small cabin. They wrap the pieces of the body in a bedsheet and take it outside. Scott insists that they need to leave now before anyone else dies, but Ash reminds him that his girlfriend's leg is terribly injured and the bridge has collapsed. Scott suggests that they look for a hiking trail or somewhere else to escape. He insists that they need to leave, even if it means leaving Linda behind until they find help. Scott decides to head out on his own, but this is going to be his biggest mistake. Okay, now Scott's going to stick up for himself and leave his friends in the lurch? Damn it, Scott, you f***ed up. You found this cabin through means that you have not divulged. Did someone call you and offer the cabin? Did you read about it in the obituary or news section once the researcher reported his dead wife to authorities? All that we know for sure is that you got your friends in a car and drove them to the middle of nowhere and now they're all dying. On the way here, you drove recklessly over a bridge, breaking the beams, which probably had nothing to do with the incidental collapse of the bridge a few hours later. Then, in the cabin, you decided to fool around in the basement, and I suppose now you're finding out. You took the demonic stuff and decided it would be fun to play with. Then when Cheryl asks you to stop because it's scaring her, you decide it's more funny to keep playing the tape. Now hell is literally breaking loose. Cheryl was terrorized in the forest alone, and when she made it back barely in one piece, you did not try to help her. Instead, you let Ash take the lead and risk his own life to try and get her to safety. Once Cheryl turned into a demon and stabbed Linda in the ankle with a pencil, it still took you far too long to spring into action. Rather than stand around and look confused as Ash got pelted against the wall, you should have immediately grabbed that axe and started swinging as soon as Cheryl grabbed the pencil. Come on, dude! We will give credit where credit is due and say that when you did actually initiate your fight or flight response, you chose to fight and put up one hell of a showdown for about 2 minutes. You valiantly beat Cheryl in the head like a drum and played whack-a-mole with her fingers until she was securely in the basement. Then you chained her up nice and tight. Well, sort of tight. She can still poke her head through and taunt people, but A for effort here. However, Scott, you could have done a lot more. You could have taken that axe and saved yourself the trouble of locking Cheryl in the basement. Instead, chop her up. You did not take the right moves with Cheryl. That is unfortunate, but you did take the right moves with Shelley. Now, this is a tough situation to be in. Shelley was your girlfriend. Maybe you loved her, we can't be sure, although we know you liked having sex with her. That became your priority after terrorizing Cheryl with the tape recorder. Weird things turn you on, Scott, but we're not here to shame anybody. What we are here to do is thank you for taking care of business when Shelley turned evil. You made the idiotic decision to pull her burning body out of the fireplace, which was clearly working to stop the possession. But then you made up for it and really took an axe to her body like it was nothing. And you did a very thorough job of dismembering her as well. It certainly saved Ash's life. You might suspect that with such a change of heart from antagonist to savior, you would be willing to stick around for the sake of your old buddies Ash and Linda. But apparently, that is skewed thinking. All of a sudden, you decide to take off into the night, barely saying sayonara, and telling Ash that Linda is his responsibility and not yours? Just because she is not your girlfriend? You literally buried the multi-piece corpse of your girlfriend together 3 minutes ago. You can't just run away and tell your grave-digging partner that they're on their own. That's not how this works. You're in this until the grave. Even if any one of you makes it out of this affair alive, which seems unlikely considering the rapid speed at which all of you are turning into demons, you cannot ever turn your back on them. You know, considering the forest itself tried to kill Cheryl a few hours ago after you played the demonic incantation, I do not expect you to get very far. I might even be inclined to say you deserve whatever happens to you out in those woods. Scott, I do not take pleasure in saying this, but you have royally up. Ash walks back inside while the demonic Cheryl continues to tell him that the entire group will end up like her, demons roaming the forest in search of human flesh. But once they turn, no one can lock them in the basement for eternity. Ash ignores her while going to check up on his girlfriend. Looking at Linda's ankle, the wound begins to change colors. The veins darken and the flesh wrinkles, and she suddenly springs up in the same demonic form as the other girls. Ash panics and runs outside before Scott here jumps on him, frightening the man. Ash helps Scott to the couch and insists that they'll be alright. He demands to know if there's any route to escape. Scott ignores the question, asking him if they're gonna die as the demon Shelley teases the injured man from the basement trapdoor. Scott reveals that there's a hiking trail which can lead them outside, but the trees already know that they're coming. Demon Linda has taken on a giddy form and sits in the hallway smiling and laughing at Ash twirling her hair. The possessed Linda and Cheryl both begin laughing in unison. Ash screams in agony, begging for them to shut up. Meanwhile, Scott bleeds out. Ash grabs the rifle and aims it at Linda's head. Linda returns to her human form and begs him to keep her safe from the demons. She rushes over and they embrace. That's when they hear Cheryl insisting that she is alright, kindly asking them to unlock the chain and let her out. Ash slowly walks over to the trapdoor, bringing the key out and taking a peek into the basement. Suddenly, Cheryl's arm bursts through the floor and latches onto Ash. He fights her off, then screams again in agony to stop the torment. Looking back, he finds Lisa back in her demonic form sitting in the doorway laughing. He's forced to pull her out of the house while she continues to tell Ash that the demons are coming for him next. He drags her body a few yards from the door and leaves her there, running back inside as she keeps laughing at his pain. Later, he tries to give Scott a glass of water. Scott is barely conscious, nearly bled out from his wounds. Ash comforts the two of them, saying that the sun will be up in an hour and everyone can go home safely. His denial suddenly ends and he drops the glass. He hears the demons laughing, taking a look outside the window. Suddenly, Linda here attacks him with the skull knife. She stabs him in the arm and he falls back. She licks the cursed blade and lunges towards Ash. He's thrown onto the couch, knocking off Scott's body, as Linda rushes to brutally stab him. Ash grabs her and blocks the attack. Cheryl reaches out from below and grabs at his leg. Finally, Ash pulls Linda's arm down and angles the knife at her back. He pushes her backward and she falls over Scott's body, impaling herself. He watches as blood spurts out of her mouth and she wriggles, laughing all the while. He drags Linda's body out of the house and places her in the shed's back room. He straps her on the workshop table. Grabbing a chainsaw, Ash starts up the device, then hesitates, losing the will to cut his own girlfriend in half. He lays his head down on Linda before carrying her body outside. Ash begins to make a hole in the ground as Linda's eyes open for a split second. Looking back, he doesn't notice a thing. He continues taking the girl's body and burying her into the ground. He completely covers her body in dirt, then rests, exhausted from what's happening. But the night isn't over yet. That's when he notices the necklace he gifted lying outside of the dirt and bends down to grab it. Suddenly, Linda's body emerges from the ground, grabbing Ash and brutally tearing off the skin from his leg. He falls over in extreme pain before grabbing this metal beam and whacking Linda in the head. Pushing her over, he continues to brutalize his girlfriend's body, but the demon is too strong. It lifts him up. He dangles from the end of the beam before the demon throws himself onto the gravesite. Linda walks over and jumps up to attack him. Ash grabs the shovel and slices off his girlfriend's head in midair. Her severed head laughs hysterically from the side. It's absolutely disgusting, and the demonic forces are getting stronger by the minute. He manages to wrangle Linda's body off of him, walking back into the cabin before realizing that the trapdoor has been opened. Ash walks past the living room with his rifle ready. He's suddenly attacked from the window by Demon Cheryl. He shoots the girl in the back, but Cheryl instantly stands back up. That's when Ash heads over to the door. He barely manages to push the door shut before Cheryl reaches through. He batters her hand until she pulls it out and he closes the door all the way. Running over to the back door and assuring that he's barricaded inside, he tries to recall where the leftover ammunition was. Okay, poor Ash. He's truly all alone. Maybe that's what happens at creepy cabins in the woods. You come as 5 friends and leave as a single, permanently traumatized adult. Thankfully, Ash has only 2 more demons left to defeat. Those are not incredibly fantastic odds, but they're certainly better than 4 against 1. Scott took care of Demon Shelley, and Ash has dismembered Demon Linda. That leaves Demon Cheryl, the OG if you will, and potentially a Demon Scott, depending on what the reanimated corpse gets up to. Right now, Cheryl is outside, and Scott is lurking somewhere within the cabin. By default, this makes Scott the first priority since he is physically closer to Ash. Don't discount Cheryl though. She's been pulling the strings all night, lurking in the basement until a few moments ago. Who can say what she's truly capable of now that she has reached her full power, or at least become strong enough to break the chain holding the basement door trap shut? That's not a promising sign, but it is most important to focus on the problem closer at hand. Scott, damn it. Ash has a rifle in his hands, but he could be more protected. What would be really stellar is a rifle and a chainsaw. Where is that chainsaw? In the shed. Better get out there, Ash. There does not seem to be any path to the work shed that does not involve going outside, so for a moment, why not try to deal with the demon in the house using only the weapon already in your possession? Walk into the main room, stand over Scott's body, and shoot him in the head. If you really need to be extra cautious, take the axe that's been lying around for a few hours now and chop the rest of his body into little pieces. You might feel some guilt about these actions, but that pain is only momentary. And if we're being honest, Scott had this coming. He might have been your best friend when you first arrived at the cabin, but not too long ago did he try to up and leave you and your girlfriend for dead. Shoot him in the head. Once you've done that, and you are down to facing only one demon, your sister Cheryl, head to the chainsaw. This is not far from the main cabin, and it will be more effective than worrying about aiming a gun. The fun part about chainsaws is that, as long as they're turned on, they can tear and destroy anything. No skill required from the user. Now Cheryl's body is dismembered. Take things a step further and protect yourself to the high account by using fire. We have witnessed that fire causes the demons physical pain, if not potentially killing them. There is a fire still burning in the fireplace. Begin spreading that fire over everything possible. The cabin and most of the things inside it are flammable, so setting the whole place ablaze should be easy. Earlier in the evening, Ash used a lantern to root around the basement with Scott. Smash the lantern in the center of the cabin, then drop a log onto the oil. Turn that cabin into your personal rage room or sauna and burn it to bits. This method has several advantages. First of all, it permanently destroys the dismembered corpses. If being burned does not prevent them from rising yet again, well, you are never going to stand a chance anyway. Secondly, a big flame will keep you warm throughout the rest of the night. Dawn is coming, but that does not mean that you are out of the woods yet. Third, a burning cabin has to catch someone's attention. That will create a huge flame seen from miles off, which can be a signal that there's a problem and someone needs help. Bring the rescue crew to you. Do not go to them. Finally, a big burning cabin means no more cabin. No more college friends renting it out here and finding demonic artifacts and subjecting themselves to demonic possession. I mean, you're already there, Ash. Why not do everyone else a huge favor and destroy the bad stuff while you can? We'll all be eternally grateful. Ash walks into the basement, slipping on the staircase before noticing a sprinkling of blood leaking from these pipes. The light bulbs fill with blood, shattering and spraying glass around. Ash stands in front of this blinding movie projector. Blood begins dripping onto the screen, casting the entire basement in a gross red light. He hears the disembodied voices of his old friends berating him from all corners of the house, and he runs over to grab more ammunition before continuing upstairs. Upstairs, Ash notices the clock winding itself back at rapid pace, turning back time. He takes a look around the room, paranoid of another demon attack. He looks in the back room as something runs towards him. Ash quickly closes the door as he begins to go crazy from the paranoia. The shutters of the cabin begin banging at every window. Ash rushes to the mirror. He's in a state of sheer panic. He places his hand against the mirror, but it goes through the reflection inside of the glass. Ash is freaking out as things become increasingly disturbing. He lies against the door, remembering to reload the rifle. Ash psychs himself up for a final attack. He pulls out the necklace he gifted to Lisa, thinking of his girlfriend. Suddenly, a set of hands break through the door behind him as Ash struggles to free himself of the grip. He pushes himself off and aims his rifle through the door, shooting Cheryl. As Ash moves the drawers as a barricade, Demon Scott wakes up and attacks. He's forced to fight off an even stronger demon as Ash is held up by the neck. He pushes his fingers through Scott's eyes and incapacitating him. That's when Cheryl bursts through the front door and pushes Ash over. On the floor next to the fireplace lies the Book of the Dead. She heads towards this book at the same time that Ash realizes that he needs to destroy it. Crawling over, he's held down by Scott. Ash manages to grab Linda's necklace while Cheryl here beats on him with a fire poker. After multiple tries, he is able to lasso the necklace onto the book, pulling it closer towards him. Just as Cheryl is about to whack him again, he throws the book onto the fireplace. Ash watches in horror as the bodies of his friends dissolve. It's a horrifying scene, but the man is now safe. Lying on the ground in absolute exhaustion, the man gets up as morning hits. He walks outside to the car, ready to drive away. Just at that moment, the demonic entity of the woods bursts out the front door of the cabin and forces itself down Ash's throat. But what would you do? Would you run through the woods and seek shelter, or fight them all off with everything you had until dawn? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this. And don't forget, from now on, we'll be uploading on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Until next time, have a damn good day.